Hey there, Impact Podcast. We're back again to talk about TNA wrestling shenanigans. Well, I usually don't come on here very much to talk about people's contracts, especially when it's speculation and things like that. But we have obviously talked about it in the past. But we are gonna slightly go down a bit of a rabbit hole here because I'm sure a few of you have seen these things out there that Mike Santana's contract, his deal is up sometime fairly soon, the next couple of months or so, maybe the next three months or so. Now, it's not impossible, in my opinion, again, that he can re-sign with TNA. Obviously, never say never. But we have seen him in WWE. So it does beg the question to me to be like there is a level of saying, if you're the champion or if you're a major player in TNA and you want to kind of get your eyes on TNA, it's like, is it worth going to WWE to do some things? And it's like, it's tough to say no, because that is a big thing to be like, hey, we're working together. I'll be on your show. And hey, that's a pretty big deal. Because again, like the NXT show, the network that they're on is their bigger network. I'm sure, again, same thing. It's very tempting for a lot of wrestlers, and I'll have to say this a billion times again, but I've probably said it probably a billion times again. But that's not the be all and end all, and it shouldn't be the be all and end all. The amount of money that you can get to go to WWE, certainly you should 100% think about it and be like, yeah, dude, that's great money. I can do a lot of things with that money in this world. That's how the world works, so it's like, that's what I gotta kind of do if you're in this world of professional wrestling. But the thing about WWE is it is a very specific system. It's a very specific system. They do things a very specific way. And I think NXT is a much more free sort of thing, but they still do expect things a certain way for the most part. And again, this is just, again, like, I continue to say this about WWE. They have, and same with AEW too, and even TNA to some extent, but they have, especially WWE and AEW, they have so many. I mean, TNA has a handful of people that are underutilized, but WWE has literally hundreds. Same for AEW at this point. They have literally hundreds of people that are underutilized. And again, like, at a certain point, it's like, you don't even care. Like, you don't even care. The only reason you've got these guys is to prevent them from being in AEW for WWE, or for AEW to prevent them from being in WWE, or being in TNA, or being somewhere else, or doing other things and being successful. So hoarding talent, and this is one thing that I think TNA, has done the best, is, in some ways at least, is a no pressure kind of approach. Look, we can offer you this is what we can offer you, that is it. If you're going to choose us, great, please choose us, we would love to have you, absolutely. But if you're gonna go, good luck to you, like, whatever else. But at the end of the day, it is your decision. We're not going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. You know where we are. We know what we're about. The deal. You know the dance, and all of that sort of stuff. So again, don't think that, we don't we don't value you or whatever, or whatever, but this is what we can offer you. That's it. Even now, we're still not got enough money to really, pay people the big bucks that AEW and WWE do. But if you're going to WWE, you've got to be realistic. Like Joe Hendry, he's been there for about a year, and he was really, really hot when he was in TNA, and he's still fairly hot in WWE, but I think he's cooled off quite a lot, because I think a lot of people kind of expected him to be like maybe in NXT for a very short period of time and then move on to the main roster, or even just start on the main roster. And again, there's a lot of guys that have done the same sort of thing. Josh Alexander went to AEW. What's he doing now? Absolutely, basically nothing. What's Jake Something doing now that he's left TNA? Yes, he's a champion, but he's a champion holding a championship that doesn't really matter, and again is barely featured. Again, not like that he's completely not, but again, like, same sort of thing. Look, Gianna Prazo did the same thing. Went to AEW. Now where's she at? She's on the D show of Ring of Honor. Barely seen. And even then, when she did win the title or whatever else it was that she was doing over there, I think is she still champion? I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, like even that, it's like, oh yeah, so what? Like this is like token gestures at this point. Like, and I know she was doing schooling and stuff like that, but she was doing schooling and stuff like that in TNA as well. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of people get tempted by these big money contracts, and I think, again, Mike has a family. So if he wants to make a lot of money for his family, hey, that's kind of what you got to do. The thing about that is, in some ways, hey, look at what Matt Cardona did on the Indies. He was making more money on the Indies than what he was making in WWE before. So he proved that, hey, you don't need WWE to be financially stable and to be happy. And I ultimately hope that Santana picks to be happy, and again has to understand, hey, like, you think that it's demanding now or whatever, it's a lot more pressure to go to WWE. You know what I mean? A lot more pressure. And I feel like, again, even if he's as white hot as Joe Hendry, he's probably going to get the same treatment, or virtually the same treatment. Be in NXT for like a year or so, barely do anything, then maybe goes to the main roster, maybe-ish, kind of, and then whatever. I don't know what they're going to do with him. Like, maybe he'll be on Raw, maybe he'll be on SmackDown, but yeah, whatever. So what, kind of thing. Again, like, is he going to factor into the plans that they've currently got and the characters that they've currently got? That's the thing. Like, WWE might be interested, but they might be like, well, yeah, we're interested, but we don't really have anything for you. You're really talented, and we'd really like you on our roster or whatever, and you are a superstar, but what have they got for you? You know what I mean? And if you're happy to be a mid-card act for a little while or whatever else it is, that's fine. I can understand that to an extent as well. But, again, look at Penta, who's gone there. I don't even think that they planned out for him to be the Intercontinental Champion. They just decided to do it, which is crazy. Again. And it's like, he's been there for like 6 months, 8 months, something like that, whatever it's been. Like, and finally he, like, yes, I don't agree that, I agree that he should have probably won the title at some point during these first 6 months or whatever it is. That's fine. I'm not saying that he shouldn't. I'm just saying that there's been no real direction for that. It's just like, oh, well, I guess we'll put this belt on you. Here you go. Great, But he's so over in a way with the audience that the audience are just happy to see him get the belt and whatnot to an extent. But at a certain point, it's going to be like, well, what's all this about? Like, where's the story? Is like having some good matches, that's great. But without a story, people will start losing interest. And again, same thing for Penta and a lot of those other people. It's like, yeah, you're here and you exist and whatnot, but are you our superstar, or are you going to break out, or whatever else? Well, maybe time will tell. Maybe, yeah, sure. But like, again, you're not getting, and maybe you understand saying, hey, oh, well, that's my position. My position is to prove myself, or whatever. Go there, prove myself. You can do that for sure. You could try to do that for sure. And again, if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. I think, again, it would be a big hit to TNA. And every few years, this sort of thing happens. Sort of thing. I mean, Moose is one of the few people, and Eddie and a few other people, but, that have stuck around for a long period of time. And before that, it was AJ and Abyss and a few other people in EY and, yeah, whatever. Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, the loyalists of TNA's, like, early years and whatnot, that were there for hell and high water and then some. And then the company just hasn't really recovered to the same point that it was before it sort of started going down the drain. You know what I mean? Yes, it's recovering now, and it's been recovering for the last few years, but it's still not in the same position. And that's the problem. Not just in terms of, like, rankings or whatever. We're not just saying we want TNA to be not the number 2 promotion because we want TNA to be the number 2 promotion, or with TNA marks or whatever. We're saying, hey, we want competition in that space. We want TNA to have enough money to hold on to some talent for at least a few years, and especially new talent for a few years, and then say, okay, cool, great. Now that we've been able to solidify and hold on to some talent and build up, but also build up some other new talent as we're coming along. Yes, some of these talent might leave or whatever else it is or whatnot. Leon Slater might go, the Hardys might go, these people might go, that person might go to AEW or to WWE or whatever. But we have enough other people that are coming into our doorways that are like Ricky Sosa or whoever else. And maybe Ricky will go to WWE at some point. Who knows? But again, like, we have him for a little while. Okay, let's make something out of him. And then let's find time to say, okay, like, since we've made something out of him, how can we make him or use him to make something out of the next person and the next person, and so on and so forth. All of these sorts of things. And that's the same thing for Leon. Like, again, he's in that same position of, looks like WWE is very interested. I don't know how long his, like, contract is. But obviously, if he really wanted to leave and he really wanted to go to WWE or wherever, he could just ask for his release. And I'm pretty sure they'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, we might give it to you or whatever, but you are our X Division champion at the moment, so hey, we expect you to drop that title. In the ring, 1, 2, 3, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Not just, oh, well, I'm going to vacate this, or like the Tessa Blanchard situation kind of thing, where it was like she still had the belt and they were in amongst negotiations and all that sort of stuff, and it didn't work out, and then the title was just vacated and all that sort of stuff. So again, like, there is a level of, I don't know, dread, I suppose, in all of these. And that's, I don't want to ever subscribe to that, because again, I don't believe that we should ever dread these sorts of things, because I always think that it's a new opportunity for somebody else to break out. You know what I mean? I think that there's a lot of people that are in TNA that are underrated. And again, there's so many people that are in WWE and AEW that are underutilized. And I know that they want more. Like Kazarian. Kazarian wanted more from himself, and he left AEW. Same for Santana. He wanted more from himself. I'm pretty sure he was saying to AEW, hey, you gonna do something with me? Nope. Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna leave then. You don't want to do anything with me. You proved that you didn't want to do anything with me. Maybe I had my rough spell there or whatever else it is, but now I'm back. So have we got any plans? No? Right, cool. Great. So now I'm just gonna leave and see what my options are. And I think that TNA was lucky in some ways, because again, he could have gone to WWE or tried to go to WWE, and I think that they would have been potentially interested. But I think but perhaps one of the reasons why they weren't that interested was because, you know, they already knew the story in some ways as well. They were like, hey, this guy's just come off of injury and an addiction period and all this other stuff, yada yada yada, whatever, all that stuff. So again, we're not gonna touch that, at least for now. Plus, again, it's just another tag team guy that's now a singles act. So we don't like, despite how talented he is, we're not that interested. We aren't, like, again, I think it's crazy. WWE is very crazy, because it's like, I do think that they only really care about their big time money makers. But then again, it's like really weird, because I think Joe Hendry would be a big money maker, and yet they haven't really done a whole lot with him. Same for LA Knight. He's been over there for a long time, and he won the US title. Did he win the IC title? I can't remember. Maybe he won tag team titles. But yeah, he's been main event ready for a long time. And again, the guy's only not getting any younger. And I know apparently like 50 is their new 20, apparently. So maybe when he turns 50, they'll finally give him the belt, the world title or something. After realizing, hey, this guy's 50, so we better give him the belt. You know, like, that's what we do. We give 50-year-olds the belt. You know, which is just crazy. But again, you know, again, it's one of those things of saying, you know, would he fare any better than LA Knight or Joe Hendry? I think both of them are probably, I don't want to say, they have a more popular gimmick. That's what I would try to say there. They have a gimmick that is more universal, more so than what Santana's is. Santana's an everyman, I guess, more so, and that is can be a more universal kind of gimmick in a sense. But I don't know, dude. Yeah, I think he could do well for himself in WWE, absolutely. But it depends on not only WWE, but TKO. Does TKO see it? Because again, I think that that's a huge thing. If you're not already, and again, this is the problem in WWE. They need to take more risks and just say, okay, you're not a draw yet, but we need more draws. We need more new draws and we need to phase out the old ones. You know what I mean? And it feels like WWE and TKO are fighting one another for that space of saying we need to hold on to our superstars and whatnot. Absolutely, in some ways, I understand that, but you know, they don't need to be the champion, you know, and they don't need to be there to hold down the fort. You've got new young superstars that can carry the ship, or at least hopefully. That's the thing that you've got to do. You've got to get the people to be like, yes, these new people can carry the ship. And it's like, even Liv Morgan and some of those other people that are there, sometimes it feels like they've been here for a while now, and they've been kind of carrying the ship for a little while, kind of. And but yet they still kind of feel like, I don't know, like they haven't really got there. They've never really felt like Liv's the girl, Liv's the one. She's top bitch, whatever. You know, not like you would feel like, oh man, she, you know, like she needs to be like Charlotte levels, or I don't know. She doesn't need to be legend levels. No. She needs to be a legitimate, not like physical threat, I guess, but she needs to be a threat. She needs to be like, oh, this person who's won the title however many times, and you know, whatever else she's done, she's done so many great things, you know, but yet it still feels like she's playing second fiddle or even third fiddle sometimes, you know. And I know she's just come back off that injury and whatnot, but still, like, I don't know. I just feel like Santana, even like, again, you, like I said, you look at the guys who are probably, if not just as much over or even more over than what he was, or, you know, whatever, than like LA Knight and Joe Hendry, who have been from TNA in that position right now. Yeah, they're not doing too well. Like, they're not doing horrible, obviously, but like, you can continue to stay in TNA and kind of be treated like Moose is, kind of now, where it's like, he's the big fish, he's the former champion, he can be here, he can do stuff, he'll always have a space, you know, he is a superstar, but we're going to use him like a ladder to help, you know, build the next generation. You know, he's helped build Leon, he's helped build Santana, he's helped build other people, but he's still sort of floating near the top. He's not really lost. Well, he has lost a little bit because he's not the world champion or whatever, and he's not like constantly in the title picture or whatever, but still, they've tried to do things to keep him relevant, you know, and have all of them work? No, but still, they're trying to make it work. And I get that, like, you know, like, you can be doing that in WWE, but realistically, it takes more to do that. You know, you can't just slap somebody with a title and say, here you go, and then say, oh, well, we have no story for you, or whatever, especially when you're WWE, and you're meant to be the company of stories and stuff, you know, you're the ones who are meant to care about stories and narrative and things like that. It's like, bro, give me something to work with, or at least give me some promo time or something, and I'll work something out, you know, like, I'll give me a story, you know, I'll figure this shit out, you know, I'll put it together, you know. That's the problem in WWE. You know, there's no, well, I understand if you say, well, we don't want inmates running the asylum, so to speak, whatever. But at least saying, hey, let's work together, let's figure something out, let's make something work, let's give me a promo, or let me work with this person, or let me work with that person, or whatever else it is. Let's do this, let's try that. Let me hold this thing for more than a couple of weeks. I don't know. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I say the same thing with the TNA titles and some of the things like where they hot potato the titles. And I've said like WWE has terrible ADHD where they're just like flipping the titles around all the friggin' time. Like, it's like, dude, what the heck is going even on? Because you cannot keep track of like who has the title, who had the title, when they had the title, because like the title's changing all the time. And it's just ridiculous. It's like, bro, if you wanted to do this match or whatever it was, you could have done it in 1,000 ways, or told the story in 1,000 ways, in a 5-way, 6-way match, whatever it was, but not have to have the title hot potato between one person to another person every single week. Or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So it's just like, bro, ain't nobody can keep up with this shit, and none of those reigns will mean anything, at least for a long time, maybe in 10 years, 5-10 years or something, when people have sort of forgotten, yeah, maybe, but, for now it's not, yeah. So I'm afraid for the same thing for Santana, I guess, is the main point that I'm driving away there at. I mean, that's the same for any talent, to be honest. I mean, like, they could treat him like a big deal or whatever. Absolutely. But I continue to look at their track record. You know what I mean? Especially of late, So, but again, it's up to Santana at the end of the day. Is he like, hey, TNA was the ones really who, gave me this opportunity. And not only this opportunity, but pretty much my first, proper, big time, opportunity in wrestling. Because before he was in TNA, he was just doing the indies. And how long was he there in TNA as a tag team guy or doing that stuff? Several years? I don't know. But yeah. So again, saying, I'm going to switch sides or whatever, get you, besides a bit of money. Like, and I know that's AEW, and I'm comparing pears to apples here or whatever, in a way, or whatever. But you can say the same thing for AEW in that regard, at least. AEW has had a very similar track record. Look at Brian Cage. Look at literally anyone you can pick that has come from anywhere. There's been a handful of guys that they've gone, these are our core guys. The rest of the people, they don't matter. And we're just focusing on these guys. That's it. We're not really interested in pushing anyone new or anything new. MJF, what's his name? Let's say Darby, but what's his name? Hangman Page. You know, those guys were already semi. Well, I guess Hangman Page wasn't kind of, but he was getting there. But yeah, like Kenny Omega, those guys who are already at that space, right? Those are our guys. That's it. It's been the same for the last like 5-6 years. Same handful of guys at or near the top. No one really has, well, besides Swerve, I guess, has really broken through the mold and been a new guy that's sort of come from sort of out of nowhere to being the top guy, So I just want to see for everyone. And that's the thing about, like, if Santana stays, and I already sort of said this, if he stays, they're, like, already I'm saying sometimes here and there, it's starting to get a little bit stale because, again, he's already faced most of the people on the roster. So it kind of would be good if he did step away or if he did leave in some ways, or if you had more talent or more other people for him to go up against, or if you actually built a lot more other people up a lot more for him to actually go and face. And I said before, like, obviously he's a big draw for TNA. So the problem then becomes, like, what's your next default to go back onto, or the next person to build up, if you're going to say, okay, this is where we're going to go. I said before, maybe you could go back to Moose. I don't really want the title to be on Eddie. I think it's a solid option, obviously, in many ways, but I don't want to see the title back on Eddie, because I think it's like overplayed in a sense if Santana's leaving or whatever, and this is the time to say, well, let's move the title off and put it on Eddie, and then we'll figure it out, and maybe Moose will win it, or at least Moose will get a title match or whatever. So we'll get to see that. That'll be a big time thing at some point or whatever. And I said that could happen. But, like, I don't know, dude. It's so, like, in the weeds in a way of, like, if and maybe and buts and whatever else. You never know. Like, it's like, and I don't know maybe why Moose does what he does, but he seems very loyal, and he seems like he's Mr. TNA now, along with Eddie. They're Mr. TNAs. They're like, we ain't going nowhere. We're here. That's it. We're gonna be here and we're gonna do our thing. That's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna hold this thing down. Same with, like, Rosemary. She's been there for a long, long time, and it's like, yeah, she has sort of done everything in a way. Like, Moose hasn't quite reached that point where I would say that he's really in the same picture, but he's sort of getting in that picture, certainly. And, like, I would continue to be like, well, what's next for whoever's next? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I said before, like, I feel like Mustafa Ali, you're kind of missing a chance there for him to be in that main event slot. He really should be in that main event slot as well. Maybe he doesn't need the title, I don't know, but I still think that he deserves to be in that main event sort of slot. And I felt like you were almost going there, and now it's like we're kind of cooling off for a little while or whatever. But then again, it's like, well, we kind of need challengers over here. We kind of need challengers over there. We kind of need this here. We kind of need that there. You know, just having more talent that you can utilize is a good idea for more things or whatever. But again, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I wanted to come on and sort of talk about this stuff and sort of get my thoughts out about it, because like, again, it is tough to say. It's just impossible to tell sometimes whether he's going to go or whether he's not going to go or whatever else it is at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, I think it doesn't really matter if anyone's going. You know what I mean? You've kind of got to act like everyone is going to leave, even if they stay. You know what I mean? You've kind of got to go, well, what if they're not going to be here next week or whatever else it is? You know, I hope he's here next week or whatever. You know what I mean? I hope he's here next year. I hope he's here for the next couple of years at least. And if he does decide to go to WWE soon, well, it is the best thing for him in some ways. I can get that, because again, you're not getting any younger. If you want a shot at the big time, the big time, then now's the time to do it. You know, get your money, you know, do your thing, have your moment, blah, 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 whatever else. Go on and, you know, just do your stuff, man. Be happy and enjoy it and get what you can out of it, because again, you know, it's a fleeting thing. People talk, you know, like even when people now, it's crazy. Like when I was first getting into wrestling, John Cena was like, you know, he was holding the world title for like the first time. Now it's 20 odd years later, and he's retired. You know what I mean? Like I haven't seen his whole career go by, but I've seen his whole career go by, if you know what I mean, in those 20 years or whatever it's been, you know. Same for AJ, I think, but he wasn't actually the champion at the time, but whatever. You know, I've seen his whole career go by now, basically, from when I saw him and when I started looking backwards into what he'd done before and all that, or not everything, but like a lot of what he'd done before, you know, it was like, yeah, I've seen a lot of what this guy is about and what, you know, he does and all this stuff, you know. And again, I think that era and that sort of thing of like, I don't know, that type of wrestler almost can never happen again. You know what I mean? Because WWE is now at least no longer run by an idiot who's like, they'll never work because they're too small or whatever. You know, they're at least looking at saying, okay, can this guy work? You know, can that guy work? What, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's what we want. That's what we need. You know, we need to have guys that are going to come here, you know, be that money maker and keep driving the machine, so to speak. You know what I mean? Same for TNA. They need to do the same thing. They need to set themselves apart from WWE and AEW and all the other stuff that's out there. But again, they can't just pretend like WWE is not going to be able to ever outbid them, because they are. They're easily able to outbid them. That's easy for WWE. But sometimes it's not about the money. You know what I mean? I think Dolph Ziggler or Nick Nemeth is only there TNA based on a handshake, for the most part. So, effectively WWE or even AEW could be like, hey, come work for us again. But I think he's like, hey, look, I just want to wrestle for a while. I just want to hang out on the indies and do my stuff. I don't want to really, if you want me, handshake deal. Maybe I'll be there for a show here or there, come in there now and again, or whatever else it is. But beyond that, I don't want to be there under contract for, for a year or 2 years or 10 years or whatever else it is, because I've already done that, and, I value being free and able to do what I want more than going and working for you for 10 years or whatever else it is. So, but same thing for a few people. Like I said, maybe Mustafa Ali. I think that he's actually signed, but, I don't know when his deal is up. I think maybe early next year, I think. So, and realistically, that's not far off, in a sense. But again, it's like, if any of these guys really wanted to go to WWE, they could, because for the most part, and the same for anyone, if they really wanted to go to WWE, they'd just say, hey, TNA, let me out of my deal. And just like friggin' Danny Luna, they'd be like, oh, all right then, good luck. And then they'd be, negotiating with WWE or AEW or wherever it is, whatever, and, TNA will have to, if Santana leaves, they'll have to move on. But even if he stays, they'll have to move on. You know what I mean? They'll have to find the next big heel and the next big babyface and the next big storyline and, whatever else. So again, you can't just sit idly by just because, this is like the Cody Rhodes thing in WWE. Despite having a big time superstar on your hands, you've got to say, okay, cool. We can't just have them be the champion all the friggin' time. Same thing with the John Cena thing, with that they did so much. It's like, yes, he is our big star, and he needs to be in a big time role and whatever else. But again, you cannot just have him in that big time role all the time, because again, it's like, we need to build other people. We need to do other things. We cannot do this all the friggin' time. You need to take a break from that. Do something else. Here's something else. What's this? What's that? Okay, let's do this. Let's do that. Whatever. Let's find another path to get from where we are to where we're going or whatever. Will the audience react to this? Will the audience react to that? All that stuff. So again, that is where he and everyone else has got to look at it. It's not emotion based, in my opinion. It's not money based, in my opinion. It's, okay, how am I going to be perceived and presented to me? That's especially for me, but that's what I would consider if I was him in that position. If I had to go to WWE, I know what I'm going to be paid. That's cool. That's great. That's fine. What is my role going to be? What are the specific, caveats or details of the deal that you want me, right? We want, like, if it's like, we want you in NXT for how long? We don't know. Okay, well, if I haven't proved to you that I'm worth your time to put onto the main roster already, And you've seen what I've done for the last like year and a bit here with the TNA WWE partnership, and you say, well, maybe we want to do some stuff with you in NXT just to make sure that the audience is going to get, accustomed to you, da 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 da, whatever, that sort of thing. Okay, that might be a different story, but then again, you say, well, I have already been there in NXT. I've already done stuff in NXT, and maybe I haven't been there every week for a long time or whatever else it is. But again, I've been there. I've done stuff. The audience has reacted to me. So realistically, you're not saying anything. You're just saying, hey, come work for us, please. And you're saying, hey, we'll stick you over here in NXT until we figure out what we're going to do with you. So don't lie to me. Just tell me the truth. We don't know what we're going to do with you yet. Well, then why am I coming there? Like, if you don't know what you're going to do with me, or you can't fit me in somewhere, and you're not going to have something for me, then what am I going there for? Like, he could have a great thing against Penta. That's one of the first things that I would think of if I was bringing in Santana, because they've had battles in the past. Maybe you'd say, oh, it's a bit overplayed or whatever else, blah, da, da, da. Oh, well, sure. Okay, sure. There's 1,000 other things that he could do. But that's one of the things that I would say, hey, this is something that we could do. Him and Penta. Him and Phoenix. They've got a history, and Phoenix isn't doing anything, and there's like him and Ray, maybe. I don't know. Maybe Ray's going to retire before then. I don't know. But still, like, again, you've got a few of those guys that he's sort of either have had history or have some sort of potential connection to. Obviously, I'm sure that he grew up, as a big fan of Ray. So, I think everyone's a big fan of Ray, no matter kind of who you are. But he's a generational star. So it's like, well, how can you say I wouldn't want to work with that guy or whatever else it is? Absolutely. But yeah, it's like, that would be where I would be at. I would be, even if it's not in the ink, you know what I mean? I'd be saying, so where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? Where are you gonna use me? What have you got planned for me? Are you gonna change my gear? Are you gonna do this? Are you gonna? What's my theme song gonna be? What like, all these questions that I would have. I would be like, I want to understand the presentation that we're going for. Not just to say, I'm going to say no to all your ideas or whatever just because you want to change things. That's fine if you want to change things, but I want it to feel like we're on the same page and that we have the same vision for where we're going, so that, if I agree to something, that it will come together. I'm not just coming to come there and you're going to say, oh, okay, this is what we're saddling you with. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's not going to work for me. Too bad, that's what you've got. You're under contract, so you got to go out there and do it. Well, I suppose I will, but this is BS, and I'm going to start calling for my release immediately, because this is BS, pretty much. Why did you even bring me in here just to friggin' try to force me into doing this stuff? So yeah, like, same with like Karrion Kross. Like, I know that was a different regime again, but still, it's like, dude, I would have just said no. I would have said, no, I'm not going out there in that. Nope. Like, I would say, no, brother. I ain't going out there in that shit, bro. I ain't going out anywhere in that, And yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm just gonna call for my release right now, brother. This is no good, you know. So because there's a certain amount of like trying to protect yourself and trying to protect your own gimmick and trying to protect your own legitimacy that I do think there is in this business sometimes, where it is like, hey, I might be going off script or whatever else it was, or whatever, but hey, there's a certain amount of that where it's like, yeah, but I need to protect myself at a certain point. I cannot let my career be ruined by these freaking idiots that just want to make make a fool out of me or whatever. I don't know. Or just like here to get sick laughs or here to whatever. So yeah, that's what I would try to avoid, obviously. And just the pitfalls, just the dangling of the carrots, like Chelsea Green that they've like been doing to for ages. She's been there and she's been great, you know. But they're just like, oh, we don't think she's ready. We don't think she's, you know, she's that B plus player or whatever else it is. She's not the woman or whatever else it is. But we'll keep dangling that carrot and say, oh, she's really good. She's really good. Trust us, you're really good, Chelsea. We love you, but you're not up here yet, you know. And we don't think you ever will be or whatever. But, you know, again, that's the same thing that you don't want to have happen. And even the same thing with like Cody Rhodes, that they're pretty much their handpicked guy in many ways. It was like, yeah, we're not even going to go with him, you know, or we weren't going to go with him. We were going to go with The Rock and we are going to do this thing. But then the fans, you know, basically forced us into going back to our original plans, you know, and, you know, we did that and it was pretty much the most success that we ever had for the most part. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know how much the fans would rally behind Santana like that, you know, like what I mean, especially if Santana doesn't get to start saying, hey, this is my story and this is my finish to my story or whatever. So that, you know, like that's where he's got to be, you know, and everyone's got that basically. So yeah, again, I just don't know, guys. But anyway, yeah, I've rambled on long enough here, I think. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. And yeah, hope you all be good to one another and to yourselves. But yeah, hope you join me again in another one as well.